Hello, everybody. This is Game and Gadget podcast number 20 into 20 territory. And with me on this special, do we call it an anniversary for number 20? We're going to go with an anniversary. For the Game and Gadget podcast number 20, I have Tony Warriner, co-host extraordinaire. Again, he's saluting. For those on the audio podcast, you'll just have to watch the video to see this spectacular salute. Thanks, Tony. And also with us today, Ian Fothergill, all the way from a much more energy-efficient Spain.
Hello.
So, chaps, without further ado, let's get straight into this and talk about the elephant in the room. And I don't mean by the size of the peripheral. I mean just by the brute power that is resting in Tony Warriner's hands. It is, of course, the Steam Deck. So, without me gushing too much, Tony, why did you choose the Steam Deck?
It's a good question, and it's so long ago that we filled that form in to order it that I can't actually remember what I was thinking. Probably, I mean, the great thing about being a developer is you've got an excuse to buy any particular piece of hardware that you might be interested in because you need it for work, right?
R&D.
R&D.
Oh, I miss those days.
So, reluctantly, I didn't really want one, but I was forced into that purchase.
You poor man.
Which actually, I mean, it's not far wrong because I do probably plan to put out a game at some point in the future, not too long, and it will be on Steam. So I mean, you need to be Steam Deck compliant and stuff. So you need a Steam Deck.
Okay.
Just like you need 1,000 Android phones if you're going to write an Android game,
Okay, so you've kind of justified the purchase, as in this is the next money-making venture. But in terms of...
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a winner as well. You can look at some things and you think that, you can sometimes tell, can't you? You look at something coming out and you think that's going to work or that's not going to work. And I think, it's not so long ago we were looking at Steam machines and it was all a bit vague, wasn't it? And well, what are they doing with that? I mean, I even got one of the prototype ones. I'm sure we've talked about it before. It's just one of those gigabyte things, SteamOS on it and stuff like that. And that, we kind of thought, well, it's kind of interesting. Is anyone going to really go for that? But the Steam Deck, I mean, I just looked at it and thought that looks like a winner. And I don't think I was wrong either, because I mean, there's still a long wait and people are clamoring to get them. So yeah, they can't make them fast enough. So
there is one key factor into whether it will be a success or bomb. Is Jeff Minter writing a game for it?
Well, you would assume he is.
The thing is, historically, Jeff's a brilliant game designer and programmer, but historically, for some reason or other, every time he's written a game for a brand new console, it's failed. And definitely not his fault, but it's just some weird correlation thing. So,
yeah, well, maybe he's the opposite of me. He's good at picking the losers. I don't know. I mean, it's true what you say, though. It's certainly all those Atari machines and stuff. None of them lasted, did they?
Was it the Konami one or whatever it was before the Jaguar? What was that one he did that looked like being wow, and his stuff on it was looking like it's going to be great. In fact, I think it's the one he originally developed the video FX thing for, and it just never. Not even sure if it actually got released.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, I'll have to look up what that one was. But the thing is I think one of the things is he's very good at finding interesting consoles to develop for. And I think, from a writing games point of view, I think that's great. I just think from a selling games point of view, he's just a bit unlucky. But then again, he can always say whichever ones of these consoles that have done that, he's definitively written the best game for them.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. And he probably got paid to do it as well, because, I mean, a clever trick of new hardware or platforms is to get in there super early and get a big fat advance to write something cool for it. I mean, Apple Arcade being a great example. They were throwing money at that, weren't they, 3 years ago?
Yeah. So yeah, there's been some weird ones as well. I did a Philips one once that was like a Game Boy kind of thing, designed primarily for girls, but with less power than a Game Boy and a ridiculously low-powered screen. But the idea was that all the games would be for girls, and they would be on these really dinky little cartridges.
So a game girl.
Kind of, but done by Philips, who didn't have anything really powerful enough to drive it. So they just had this weird sort of system, and we mocked up various things, did some test runs, and then nothing happened. And that was a long time ago. I think I was working at Electric Spectacle at the time. So that'd be 95, 96 maybe.
I don't remember that either.
Well, they never even announced it. It was purely okay. Hey, we're going to release a console, and we're like, you're going to pay us money? Yeah, okay, fair enough. We'll look at it.
Yeah.
But the thing with the Steam Deck is that whereas the Steam machine was just a PC, there was no real differentiating it from a PC of the same spec. The Steam Deck is a PC, but it is very definitely a console. It's a handheld console. And that makes a big difference, because it's actually, from what I've seen of it, it's a console in a handheld console in a reasonable form factor to be a handheld. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more work, a lot of work gone into it, I think. It might well be a PC or a laptop underneath it all, but there's a lot of customization gone into it. Everything about it feels good, it's just good. It's just good all around.
Yeah, so again, from the user point of view, I can play it as a handheld, and I can play PC games on it.
Yeah.
That's a nice simple equation for people.
And the other thing is it's big as well, like bigger than you expect. And everyone, whenever you pick up the thing for the first time, you go, "Whoa, that's big." Then about 2 minutes later, you're completely used to it. And you go back to a Switch and you go, "Oh no, Switch! I'm playing a Switch game. It's tiny. It's tiny."
Actually, come to think of it, that's a good point. Actually, because I've been tempted to get a Switch, because then I could play Rogue Aces, which is only available on Switch and the PC. But that gives me an excuse to get a Steam Deck. Then I can play Rogue Aces on the Steam Deck instead.
Is your current employer, Aaron, not going to buy you a Steam Deck?
I'll have to ask him about that one, actually. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I can probably make a case for it.
I would have thought so. I mean, you're going to have to support it, aren't you? So
yeah, the big thing, of course, is going to be, are Steam going to be starting to prioritize Steam Deck compatible games on their front page, kind of thing. If you're going to get more promo for Steam Deck games, then it's well worthwhile.
Yeah, but there's just, I mean, the Steam Deck certified thing is already a big factor, isn't it? I mean, you've got to have that.
Now, James is just wondering how, as a project manager, you could factor that into it as a work expense. Building websites with a Steam Deck.
So you need a new PC for home.
I bet it has. Web browser on it, Tony.
I bet it has.
I don't know, actually. Not immediately, obviously, but I mean, people are doing all sorts with it. So I think you can. I mean, I've done nothing but go through the main thing, But I mean, yeah, I think you can drop back out and do all sorts of things. So,
awesome! Hey, boss, I want to check an e-commerce checkout on the Steam Deck, just to know, to make sure we're fully compatible. I don't think this is going to work, Jen. So I need to change industries if I'm going to try and get that as a possibility.
Actually, come to think of it, I mean, the prime, there's a possible edge case for making it as a robust point of sale machine.
Blimey, that is a very robust point of sale machine.
Because, well, rather than walking around with an iPad or something, you could feasibly do a point of sale machine that's it's Linux, isn't it? It's the actual primary OS for it. So yeah, you could do a different, depending on how exactly you're doing your point of sale stuff. But feasibly it would be usable as a point of sale machine.
That's a very good idea, because at times I do my contactless payment and have to wait an age for it to process. I could play a game while I wait.
Yeah, and if it's an interactive point of sale machine as well, there's a lot of scenarios for that. I used to do random art projects with museums and stuff where you do programs to do interactive setups in museums. Generally, nowadays you'd be talking using an iPad or something in a console. But if you need thumbsticks and proper sort of controls for a game kind of scenario, then interaction stuff. There's a lot of potential ideas that you can mess with it for. It's just coming up with a suitable excuse that you can persuade your boss to sort of say, hey, I can believe that.
It's not going to happen, gents, unfortunately, as generous as they are. But in terms of the model then you went for, Tony, because there's quite a few versions of the Steam Deck in terms of the spec it comes with. As I believe, can we call it the budget option? The standard option, let's call it that. The standard option comes with the slower internal storage. And then you move up and then it gets to that more flash memory speed. So which one did you go for?
I went the middle one, so the first, not the base one, the next one up.
Obviously the slow one, because he's doing the video from it.
He went for the slow internet option. There he is, he's back. Did you get any of that, Tony?
I didn't get you, but I guessed what you said.
Which model did you go for?
Oh, did I cut out? Blimey. Okay.
Oh dear.
I went for the middle one. So the base one looked wrong. The top one looked too expensive, so it leaves the middle one, doesn't it?
Right. So how much did that set you back, the middle one?
I can't remember.
Is that by choice?
Yeah. Wasn't it like 400 quid or something? I mean, it was way too much money. Painful. But I mean, you get a lot for it, but it's just a big chunk of cash up front, It's worth it, but yeah, it was painful.
So in terms of hardware form factor then, what are some of the benefits and negatives maybe you've noticed with the thing? You've already said it's quite large, and although you did get used to holding it after a while, but what else? I mean, like the display, for example. I know that's been a point that quite a lot of people have raised, because the Switch now has that beautiful OLED display, whereas the Steam Deck has gone with more traditional display technology. Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure if you sit it next to the OLED Switch, then as some people are doing, then the OLED is deeper black and all that stuff. But you don't ordinarily just look at the Steam Deck and think that there's something up with the display. I mean, it's pretty nice. I mean, you don't look at it and go, that's no good. It's perfectly good LCD display. I mean, some people are complaining about the fans, but I think there are actually different variations out there. I mean, I've not heard the fans on mine. I mean, I've not had any problem at all. So,
what sorts of games are you running on it though?
Well, I'm running pretty simple ones. I mean, our stuff obviously is not going to tax it much. I've played a few sort of 2D Metroidvania things. The kind of things that I play it's not even going to notice. I'm not playing AAA 3D things at all.
And in terms of the buttons and the analog sticks, you find them nice to use, and the touch controls on it as well.
Yeah, it's all great. I mean, when we first saw, I'm just going to remind myself. When we first saw pictures of it, it looked like the buttons and stuff was going to be awkward, or your hands wouldn't quite be right, because it's a slightly different kind of layout than what you normally see. But actually, it's brilliant. You can't fault it. I mean, you could be a little child with little hands and you'd be fine. You can be someone with huge hands and you'll still be fine. I mean, it's actually pretty good design. Works really well. It's got a lot of weird stuff on the bottom.
Oh dear.
No idea what all that does, but buttons, extra buttons and stuff.
Now we're actually losing you a bit, Tony. Your connection seems to be a bit flaky today. Now, is it? So we might have to battle on a little bit. The good news is, as it records locally when we're not doing it live, you'll be completely stutter-free. So me and Ian are just going to have to sit here and smile and not pull phases when you suddenly phase out a little bit, because it'll look very odd for the actual finalised production of the podcast. Because we'll be going... and everyone will be like, what's up with them? But anyway, in the live show, trust me, he's cutting out folks every now and again. So we're doing our best, and I'm sure Tony is too.
I don't know why the internet's good here.
Yeah.
But regardless, we're certainly glad you enjoyed the Steam Deck. But what are you going to do with it? I mean, have you tried... I know it comes with Linux on it, and that seems to be the preferable option. But you can also put Windows on it to run all the more Windows-based games that haven't gone past... Is it the Proton? The Photon? The Proton? Compatibility layer they've got?
I don't know how you... I haven't looked at any documentation whatsoever. I think you just I think most games are the Windows versions, to be honest. I would have thought, and certainly the things I'm playing are all the Windows versions. When you link with the libraries and off you go, you know. I don't think it really. I don't think you sit down and say, I'm going to write a Linux Steam Deck game. I don't think it works that way. I mean, I might be completely wrong. I might be, but I think you just write a Steam game and it works on the Steam Deck. You know.
Yeah, you're primarily linking to the Steam libraries.
Yeah, it's the Steam libraries that you need to, which have presumably got slightly more stuff in them now to support the deck. You tie all that stuff up and test it, and Bob's your uncle, you know. But, you know, it seems very capable of dealing with anything. I mean, the first thing I played was Revolution's Steel Sky game, and it's the original game from 1993, and it works perfectly. So, you know, it's not going to be much of a problem. Certainly not a problem for anything I write.
Cool. Yeah, my brother Adam was saying he was looking into it. You can actually run the Unity editor on it, which, you know, it wouldn't be the best thing to do. You know, it's not the ideal setup for running it, but it does kind of prove that you could feasibly write a game on the console for the console. You know,
yeah. Well, I've seen pictures and videos of people who've got a keyboard and mouse and monitor attached to it, so you can. I don't know how hard that is to do, but you know, you can basically plug it in as a PC. You know, you can do what you want if you go grub around and figure out how to do it.
Are you sold, Aaron?
Yeah, well, the fact I can play Rogue Aces on it is probably good enough for me. But I think it'd be an interesting one. Which is like, again, it's a shame because the last Nintendo I got was the GameCube. I think was the last time I actually went out and bought a Nintendo machine, and I do keep missing out on, you know, the various cool ones, mainly because it's like there's not a game that grabs me. I buy consoles based on I want to play that game, you know, or I want to play that game better. So I recently finally got around to upgrading to an Xbox Series X, mainly because someone actually had one. I thought, yeah, I better get that now. And the difference between that and my old Xbox One is actually surprisingly dramatic. Even though, I mean, yeah, visually, yeah, okay, it's 4K, but primarily the main thing is that it's the loading speeds on everything. That's the only real difference in having all that speed. The games are basically the same. It's just it's like not waiting half an hour for something to load up.
It's true. I mean, although the original Xbox is about 1 teraflop and the new Xbox Series X is 12, it's certainly the loading speed when you have something on that internal storage. It's just dramatically different. Yeah.
So it's quite handy, you know. So I've been playing a few games on that one, and again that's back to the Game Pass thing as well. There's a decent amount of games on Game Pass, so that it's worth me playing it. And I tend to end up the same sort of thing, is that it's having the same sort of effect as Apple Arcade was intended to be, which is you play more games than you would normally do because you've got this thing you're paying for, whatever games you play. So, yeah, you've downloaded the games you know about that you want to play, and it's like, well, I'm from Yorkshire, I want to make sure I get my money's worth. So what else can I download? So you tend to be a bit more experimental with what you download, and you find some gems that you would just never have run across before, which is great. I've come across some games I've just started playing it on net, delete, but that's the whole point of this sort of service is, you can try all of them, and that works quite nicely for finding out what you actually want to play.
Yeah, and many don't even have to download it to try it. You can basically stream it.
Yes.
At least get a feel to say, is it worth downloading? I mean, to be honest, if I was a game I played, I would not be using the cloud version. It's still, I think the technology still has a long way to go, although it's novel and it does work to a point. But to just try a game out to see, is this going to be something that hooks me for a number of hours? It's ideal without having to go through the download wait.
Yeah, although I've got gigabit fibre, so they're about the same speed for me.
Fair enough. I'll just look at the 70 megabits.
Yeah, it's only a couple of gigabytes. That'll be a couple of seconds.
Oh, jeez. I'm moving to Spain. I'm catching the next plane. but yeah, Xbox Game Pass is certainly a tantalising option, just because you have, I think it's around 100 games, isn't it, at any one time where you can try them, and often they're the biggest hits that Microsoft have published.
Yeah, I mean, some of the ones are where Microsoft owns it or owns the company that owns it. They tend to stay on for longer or possibly even permanently. I'm not quite sure of how they're doing it, but generally speaking, some games you could just that's it. You can play it to death and then not worry about the fact that at some point it will go away.
Yeah.
Other stuff, they've got deals for it to come on, go away, and so a lot of people say, "Oh, but what about the devs?" And I think so far the devs are like, we get a lot of money to do this. It pays for us to write the game. And even if it's taken away a bunch of sales when it first comes out, if it's an exclusive on it, and Microsoft aren't doing that many exclusives. They are picking up a lot of games past their sell-by date, as it were, that are still really good games that you'd want to play, but you wouldn't have touched because you wouldn't want to pay premium price for it. But then this game comes up, and there's like, oh, that looks fun, I'll have a go, and you do. And the dev's getting a decent amount of money for it. And the promotion on it is such that this game is leaving next week. If you want to keep playing it, buy it. So they're pushing you to keep buying these games at a decent discount price. So it actually doesn't do too badly, I suspect, for actual sales of the games. So I strongly suspect from what I've been seeing so far that it's worthwhile for a lot of the devs to do. It's not like it's just dump a game kind of thing.
No, there seems to be a lot of different publishers involved with it. And, of course, if you've been recently acquired by Microsoft, so Bethesda, they've got quite a few on there. Activision, it looks like, once that's properly through, a lot of the Call of Duty games is going to be on there. Not exclusive to the platform, but, if you're subscribing per month, it's a tantalising
Well, I think
option.
Microsoft they said a while back, didn't they, that they're not actually interested in too many exclusives and too many platform exclusives nowadays, which is kind of a brave move, when that used to be kind of a big thing. But I think the players appreciate it.
I think so too. It's really, I mean, even Sony's doing something quite un-Sony at the minute, and they're releasing a lot of their what were PlayStation exclusives as PC titles. So although I've played Horizon Zero Dawn on the PlayStation 4 Pro, which was, by the way, one of the best games I've ever played, now it's on the PC, I'm going through it again because I haven't got a PS5. So I'm playing it at 60 frames per second at a higher resolution, and it's just nice to go through it again. And what I didn't realise until I was brave enough to plug my PC into my downstairs setup, my PC will output HDR, it will do Dolby Atmos, and it's like, what? So it's going above and beyond in certain respects, but they've just released the newish Spider-Man game on there. There's other games that they've released. So that's also quite tantalising that they're doing that as well. Sony's got their own kind of game subscription service on the horizon too.
I think the only thing that bugs me about it especially on Game Pass, is that you signed up for Game Pass, you're paying for Game Pass, you've got your Xbox username and everything's all kind of logged in through the Xbox Live, and you go to, say, a Ubisoft game or an EA game, and you can't play it unless you sign up to their system, which is, it's a free sign up, but of course it's them bombarding you with rubbish, and of course they're now selling your data and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's yet another layer of network stuff that fails. For instance, I was playing Ghost Recon Wildlands, which is a relatively old game, I found out. It's only recently on Game Pass. Great game, a few years old, and they do a trial mode on the PC, so you can actually play it for 5 hours for free, which is great. You've got to be signed up on the Ubisoft game thing to do it, but the servers for that are hardly ever working on Ubisoft for the trial version. So, of course, everyone gets really annoyed. But I'm signing in with Xbox Live. You'd expect it to be, you shouldn't have to be, and because you can't cross-play, probably because it's an old one. You can't cross-play from Xbox to PC on any of the versions. You're kind of used to the fact that you can't cross-play from the Xbox version to the Steam version or something. That's fair enough. It's two different platforms, effectively, two different sort of competing sort of thingies. But if Ubisoft are putting this game on Xbox, especially if they're putting it on Game Pass, you'd expect to get a crossplay, and it's a bit annoying, really. So, but then again, there's really, really good ones that do work. There's Deep Rock Galactic is a great game. I don't know, I've been playing that one. It really, it's co-op. Imagine it's Minecraft done in a sort of a rogue style. So it's a rogue style Minecraft, but in slightly nicer 3D than Minecraft. About a bunch of dwarves going mining, and each mission is randomized with a goal, and you can play up to 4 players co-op, and it's great fun.
Sounds good.
So in terms of portable handheld devices, let's rewind. So Tony, you've got the Steam Deck, and you seem very fond of it. If we go back in time, going from present to backwards, what have been some of your fascinations with portable devices? Like, what are some of the ones you've owned and the highlights from that?
I'd say that the funniest one, and I'm sure we've talked about it already, but I mean, I remember the Gizmondo particularly fondly. That was a wild ride, and a good example of what we were talking about before, where you get paid a pile of money to establish some new software on a platform. So I did a game called Compendium. It was like two packs of parlor games with my good friends at AI Factory back in the mid 2000s, something like that. And that I mean, the AI Factory, they negotiated this deal with Gizmondo, who approached them and said, "Can you write some of your stuff for this new machine?" And they quoted super high figure because they didn't want to do it. Gizmondo agreed to it.
Yeah, but wasn't it stolen money or something in the first place? Gizmondo thing was such a scam.
Yeah, it was a massive scam, and I mean they opened a huge shop on Regent Street, which they never paid any rent on. They all ran away to Los Angeles and took a load of UK registered Ferraris with them that were leased in the UK, and they were driving that. There's you can look it up, Google it. There's a story of it. I think it's an Enzo Ferrari, which had UK plates on it, driving around Los Angeles, and then they crashed it somewhere outside, and the thing split in two. The Gizmondo guy was thrown onto the road and kind of got up and ran away. I mean, if I'd crashed that car, I'd be dead. But supposedly there was someone else with him, and that person ran away as well. I mean, it was a right mess. And then eventually they caught up with him and deported him back to Sweden, where they dealt with the Swedish mafia people as they do. And he's probably still in jail. I don't know. But that was that was a wild ride. I mean, we actually got paid for it as well in the end, but it was extremely difficult.
Wow.
yeah, it was extremely difficult to get paid, but we did in the end, because we looked like we wouldn't at one point as it slowly dawned on us what was happening and who we were dealing with. But we had a trick up our sleeve, and we actually did get paid, so it all worked out all right in the end. But yeah, that was fun, and not. I mean, it was just a little Windows CE machine, so not dissimilar to the in principle to the Steam Deck in a way. Little Windows machine in a handheld form. I mean, it's quite nice in some ways. So it was quite nice to deal with.
Have you got a Switch?
I do have a Switch.
There you go. You must have had a Game Boy at some point.
I've got numerous Game Boy. I've got a Game Boy Advance. I've got a DS, stuff like that. Yeah.
So, is this because of development primarily, as in you knew you were going to do like a Broken Sword and GBA, for example?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the GBA for development. I think I might have got a DS. Yeah, I must have got a DS at some point because I was well into Advance Wars. And so on. I actually had an Atari Lynx.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and that I have a soft spot for that because it had a really good multiplayer flight sim game. Combat game. Can't remember what it was called now. The downside was once you'd actually got enough people together to actually play it multiplayer and connect it by the link cable and everything, and you by that point, your 8 AA batteries, or no, 8 AA batteries, I think it was, wasn't it? Some huge amount of batteries in it would have run out because it absolutely burned power. You could run for about 5 minutes, I think, on a set of batteries. It was horrific.
And that was quite a chunky thing, wasn't it? With a fairly small screen.
Yeah, but really nice games. Adventures in Slime World was a really good platformer, and Chip's Challenge, of course, was Chip's Challenge. That was good on quite a few platforms. So it was that one, and the Flight Sim that was a good aerial combat game as a network game. It was kind of good as a solo game, but it's one of these ones you start playing it with multiplayer. It's like stunt car racing. As soon as you start connecting a few machines together, and at the time that was one of very few good network games, and it was on a handheld. So yeah,
I mean, I've had quite a few handhelds. I haven't had the GBA because I had the DS, which was backwards compatible, so I kind of got my fill from that. More recently, I've got a Switch. To be honest, I don't use it that often, but the one I do use, which I actually brought after the Switch second hand, was the 3DS, which I'm getting much more fun out of, just because I just find that much nicer to hold. And although it's 3D in terms of the TV, Blu-ray, and all the rest of it, the 3D died out very quick. It was like this spurt that happened for 18 months and was never heard of again. For the 3DS, it actually was a worthy sort of part of that system. And there were certain games that made really, really good use of it, to the point where if you had the 3D off, it would make it really difficult with the camera angle they chose specifically for 3D. So there's like a Mario 3D World one, where the camera sort of jump above you, and you need to land on these platforms often that's below you. And if it didn't have 3D on, it's far harder to gauge how far you need to jump to land just where you need to be. And I love that system. It's perfect to hold. I prefer that much more than Switch, and I really wish there were still games coming out for it. But there we are. But yeah, I'd quite happily sell the Switch and just stick with the 3DS.
Expensive to buy as well, if you look on eBay.
I think I just got mine at the right time.
Yeah, that's always a thing. Yeah.
Which for retro is the key, isn't it? If you get it when everyone's suddenly splurging for this one particular device, forget it. eBay's just insane. Which reminds me, how you found all the copies of that game of yours? Yes.
Me?
Yeah, Obsidian.
I've not seen one for sale for a few months now.
That's probably you've got them all now.
They're like, no, there's another 8,000 or so to go.
Oh, jeez.
Getting them all is going to be difficult, I think.
It's not just finding a copy of each platform. It's finding all the actual copies of the game you're trying to do.
Yeah. All of them must return, as we say. No, I've not seen one. I mean, they're a bit like buses. You tend to get, like months and months go by, and then 5 come along at once, and they're all 25 quid each. There was a guy actually who had. He had a dozen of them that he'd bought from somewhere, and he was just feeding them onto eBay one after another. It was like deja vu. I'd get the thing and unwrap it, having paid 25, 30 quid for it on eBay, and then like up would pop another one from the same guy. I'd be like, hang on, I've got it, and it can't be for sale. And then it's another one. I'd have to bid for it. I can't stop myself. I'd have to bid for it. And same thing happens again. This went on like 8 or 9 times, And I wrote to him and said, exactly how many of these have you got?
And he brought them all.
He had a box full. He had loads more.
Well, what you should have done is you should have said, well, hang on a minute. I wrote this game. What if I signed them for you? You can sell them for even more and give me a cut. Problem is, you'd buy them all having signed them, wouldn't you?
He would.
I just like seeing them all stacked up, so I would end up buying them. Yeah. Well, he could send them to me for signing, and then I could just move or something.
Yeah.
And how about you, Owen? In the handheld world, you've already mentioned the Lynx. How about any of the other ones?
Yeah, I had the GBA. I worked on the GBA. Did a couple of. I did one GBA game for release. And I remember going cross-eyed because of the first version not being backlit. So I actually had to rig my dev kit version. I rigged up a version with a light over it to avoid myself going completely cross-eyed on it. In fact, we got that gig. It was when I was working at Argonaut, and Adam had got a GBA. In fact, he was in Japan. He picked up 2 GBAs while he was in Japan. And we got one of the little hacky carts for it, so you could actually put your own stuff on the ROMs. And we were writing Airburst at the time on the Mac. And I, just for fun, did a version of Airburst where it worked at GBA screen resolution as a little small screen, just literally by scaling the whole screen down into the screen, just to see what a GBA version would look like. And showed that to our executive producer at the company, and that was back when I was working on Harry Potter. And he said, "Oh, that's interesting." And he didn't mention that they were pitching for a couple of GBA titles. So this other team got put together to do the GBA stuff. Then we said, "Well, we can help you with that," because they didn't have any dev kits, and we're still waiting to get them. But of course, we had the little cartridges. So we put some of the artwork that was being mocked up for the game. Adam made some fake screenshots of it, chucked it on the cartridge as a little player. So literally, it's just a snapshot thing on the GBA, which we could then use as a pitch deck to get the game. And so, having done Harry Potter, they said, "Oh, do you want to do a GBA game?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds fun." So I did that.
It's quite good fun, wasn't it? GBA.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nice. It was a nice one to program. You got the whole Nintendo technical requirements thing was always quite fun.
Yeah. The documentation was bad.
Yeah, and they have absolutely brutal testers for those. They have one guy whose entire job is to sit there mashing buttons and waiting to see if it crashes. Just if basically imagine giving a game to a 2-year-old who's just going to go. That was what his job entailed, because all the buttons were effectively interrupt driven. You end up with the system. If you didn't do it right, you could very easily set up for the whole thing to crash if it was not coping properly with how the buttons were handled. And similarly, you have to have the exact frame rate. They didn't go with anything other than 59.7 frames per second or something. The screen refreshed at. So anything under that, nope, failed. And I know for the 3D games and so on, Nintendo had a guy who did nothing but run around the edge of the world trying to fall off. Trying to find holes in your mesh, to fall off through.
Yep.
And yet, even with all that vigorous testing, there's so many, particularly games that's been on Nintendo platforms, where there's so many places where you can fall off here. You can skip through the level just by wiggling at this point in the corner of a wall. it's really bizarre.
That's because to test everything in a large game nowadays it would take an almost infinite amount of time to test every possible scenario. So there's some bugs that this shouldn't have got through, but a lot of the stuff that people go sort of find is that's a really rare test case. Of course, once you can repo it, then it's not a rare test case because everyone knows exactly how to do it. But if someone had done that during testing and told the programmer this is exactly what I did to do it, it wouldn't have made it out into the real world. But it's that scenario where you've only got a finite amount of man hours to actually test it. So you hope you caught everything, but you're never going to catch everything completely.
No, and no developer should ever feel bad about that, because there's literally YouTube channels and Twitch live streams and real world records of people completing games by using these glitches.
Oh yeah,
and it's just become this. In some ways, it makes it more interesting to watch, because if they were going the normal route, it'd be like, we know, you turn left, you turn right. I did a podcast interview with some speedrunners, and they were Harry Potter speedrunners, because the fact they got one of the programmers of the first Harry Potter game, which they were absolutely trying to get every single possible second out of, and these guys are insanely fast through the games, and they were just hoping that I would give away some clue as to some extra new bug that they didn't know about, or a feature they didn't know about, and because there's one thing, for instance, in the library, there's a section in the library where you've got to hop from bookcase to bookcase over the top to sneak across, kind of thing, and they'd noticed that there was a shadow of a bookcase on the floor but no bookcase. And they're like, is there a hidden... I said, no, unfortunately what it is the engine we were doing, it was Argonaut's own engine at the time, and what it did was it baked out all the shadows as part of the tile set for the scene when you built the level. But if you then moved something off the level, it would still be baked in unless you did the bake. So what had happened was one of the designers had changed the way the bookcases work and moved the bookcase, but hadn't rebaked the level. So the tile set was still the same. So unfortunately, it's a fake shadow and nothing secret or hidden there. Sorry, guys. Because from their point of view, any bugs you can exploit are legal and legit for doing a speed run. It basically, it's, as long as you're not modifying the game, the game is as is. If there's a bug there, you can use it. It's up to you to find them. It's obviously the thing. It's fascinating, and I've watched a few YouTube channels where they're doing these speed runs and they're explaining the speed run, and it's just how they. I mean, obviously there's a community behind it where they're kind of sharing. I found this glitch, and some of them are so hard to pull off to the point of insanity. You may have to trigger a similar glitch 3 times in the game to get the best time, and they'll just keep playing playing.
And if it's like halfway through or towards the end of your speedrun where you've got to pull off this glitch, you've got to do the whole thing again.
Yep. No, it's pretty special. You need to have patience of a saint to be able to do that, and a tremendous amount of skill. Because when I think how I play a game, it's much more random than how they would play.
God. Yeah. Starting a new game, which mode would you like to do? What's the easiest possible? I have a thing about playing games. I'm not brilliantly good at playing games. I like writing them. I do like playing them, but I do not like extra hardcore sort of games, generally speaking, because it's like I think it's a lot of games. You play a game to feel like the hero. The whole point is you are the heroine of the game, going in. So when it's basically you are going to fail no matter whatever you do, it's like, that doesn't feel right. And it's back to the old thing of, there's an old saying that heroes roll 20s. You know, the people who are heroes in classic, in any sort of literature, they're the guys that survived because they were lucky as well as good at what they did. You know, for every kind of, so it's just like, there's always a scenario where they rolled a 20, you know, and that was it. So I think games that handhold you too much and make it just like you're just walking through, fair enough. That's a bit boring, you know. That, you know, almost like a job. Whereas ones that are too you know, over the top difficult are like, yeah, it can be fun sometimes, and you know, you can imagine trying to play any modern game with only 3 lives. You know, and if you fail on your 3rd life, it deletes your save game. It's that's the level of Space Invaders or anything that we used to play, you know, sort of the early 8-bit games and stuff, where 3 lives was thought to be enough. And I can understand why it moved to having, you know, you just continue from where you last saved, at least, you know. But I'm more of an explorer. I think I prefer the whole finding out what's in the game, and enjoying it without just being frustrated at having to go back, especially if it's an unskippable cutscene or something.
Oh yes, the worst.
Yes, that's a definite down point on Wildlands. There are levels where you've got to sneak through stuff. It's multiple sections on the level of things you've got to do with cutscenes that you can't skip because it's exposition of some character. So blah 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 blah. You know, oh, you've got to do it because okay. And you're hitting the B button. It's like, well, cancel. No, I don't want to cancel. I don't want to. You know, no skip. It's just cancelled and skip the mission. You know, or have to re-talk to him again. And there's really sort of annoying levels where you make one teeny tiny mistake, right back to the start. Wait for him to go through the cutscene again, you know.
Yeah, that's not at all. Why that choice was ever made, I don't know. I think the only time I've ever played a game on the hardest available setting was because of the novelty of it, and that was the Xbox 360 launch. I got it on day one. Well, actually, I literally got it before because I was classed as a journalist at the time. So I was very lucky. I got an Xbox 360 debug unit and an Xbox 360. Well, thank you very much. Wasn't expecting that. But it came with Call of Duty 2. Though I brought it separately. I can't remember. But anyway, Call of Duty 2. But the novelty of the Xbox 360 was it was the first console to have achievements. So you were rewarded with gamer points if you played on the harder difficulty for Call of Duty 2. And that, I think the hardest mode was Veteran. And it was insane to try and complete the game on this mode. You had to keep, basically, it was partly luck, partly just keeping your head down and letting the AI shoot the bad guys and do some of the work for you, and then you just pop your head out to get the last one who just was hiding too far behind a brick wall or whatever. But I was doing this for hours and hours, and I got through it eventually. But the frustration of doing it, it was like, you'd spawn, you die. You spawn, you die. You spawn, you die. And it's like, well, where can I go? So you'd be I was almost like one of those testers going, hit the button, hit the button, hit the button, spawned, run. And I've survived, you're dead. And so, absolutely insane.
That was what bugged me about games like Space Ace and Dragon's Lair and stuff. I didn't find them fun at all because it was basically, there was no way to know in advance what was going to kill you. You basically had to put another 10p in, having learned that kills you, and do something different, which may still kill you. And it was like, that's just irritating. I mean, I helped Freeverse on we were doing 360 stuff on one of the projects I did. Was I helped Freeverse Games in New York do the 360 version of Marathon Infinity for XBLA. And one of the things about the Marathon games, it's a general early Bungie thing, is they always had super hardcore achievements. So even pre-achievement days, if you did certain super hardcore things, it would actually flag up as a thing in the game, as secret achievement things. And I can't remember the specific one, but we're talking like doing a rocket jump while at this particular point in the game in absolute hardcore mode, while doing somersaults or some, there's all sorts of particular things you have to do at the same time, and killing every alien but only using the pistol or something. And they had that in as one of the achievements, and I'm like, I'm not testing that. Fortunately, Bruce, who is the producer on that one, he's one of the guys who kind of managed to get the project together, because he was a massive Bungie fan at the time. He played the marathon games to death. I mean, I've played him quite a bit, but he was proper hardcore. So he's the sort of person who had actually been able to get those achievements. There's this sort of person they put them in for. And again, it's only like 1% at best of your customer base, your player base, is ever going to even consider trying to get the achievement. And probably 1% of them might actually get it. But it's a badge of honor when you do,
It's interesting you mentioned games like Dragon's Lair and I think Space Ace was the other one. It was all about, we talk about games with a pattern where you need to hide here at this point, and then you'd fire at this point, and this would float along the screen, and you'd fire at this point. But Space Ace and Dragon Lair, it was literally, if you know to hit left at this point, or right at this point, or up or down or fire, if you memorised those and got the timing of when you needed to hit it, you could complete the game without ever losing a life. But getting to that point was painful because and wasn't that like an arcade machine with basically like a laser disc or something inside to play the video, wasn't it? Because it was just video playback waiting for a certain moment in time, and if you pressed the right solution, it would play one video clip, or if you got it wrong, then it would play a different video clip.
Yeah, it's basically what we nowadays call a bunch of QuickTime events. It's just stacked in sequence. So it's like games now. It's you're falling out of an aeroplane with the bad guy, mash A to grab the parachute off him, kind of thing. And you've got X amount of sort of microseconds to respond and hit it so many times. That's kind of a thing. But at the time, it was novel. It was the best way to show off the Don Bluth animation on Laserdisc. But there was actually getting a game out of it was, I think, a bit too much of a challenge. I mean, lots of people loved it, so it appealed. So that's fair enough. But personally, I absolutely hated it. and same with Shadow of the Beast on the Amiga. That was another one like that. Basically, walk along, get killed, learn that there's a trap there, walk along. There was no way to spot the trap in advance.
Yeah.
I think that was the thing. If there'd been a way to spot the trap in advance, then at least you could be, keeping your eye out for things to, okay, I've learned that's that sort of trap, so I can watch for that, But there were quite a few games like that, I suspect.
In fact, I reviewed the Blu-ray version of Space Ace. So you could just put it in your Blu-ray player and play it on, because Blu-ray players have up, down, left, right, and select, and it would basically just use that as like the controller. That was fine, but it's an infrared controller, so it's not exactly 100% responsive. So it was certainly worse than the original experience. But actually, the thing that confused the hell out of it all was my sound system seemed to have a particularly slow handshake at getting to know which audio codec was being used, whether it was Dolby Digital or DTS. It'd have a think about it before it triggered it, which meant every time the scene changed, I'd have no sound for about 2 seconds until it adjusted again. So this is a game with a lot of switches in videos. So I'd end up with most of the game with sound, but also quite a percentage of it had nothing. But it was a lovely idea, and it did look amazing remastered. But again, playing those games at the time in their original state, it would have looked phenomenal compared to what the graphics capabilities would be, not playing it in video form. So it would have been like, wow, this looks amazing. This is game technology at its highest. But then you realise how it works, and the novelty soon, I guess, disappeared for them.
I mean, you look at really early flight simulators. They look quite spectacular compared to the first computer-generated ones, because you actually had a physical model of a world that a camera was being moved over, and the whole thing was being tilted. So the actual flight simulator was showing a camera view projected onto a massive screen of this model world to give you a flight simulator. So it looked cool. the best thing with that was you could actually make them out of Lego. I remember as a kid making something like that out of Lego, where you could actually move a mirror and a periscope kind of thing, and you just move the whole thing underneath you while tilting it.
Yeah, I always find anything like this, it's like magic's amazing.
Both of you are frozen now.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I don't know if I've lost James or James has lost James or James has lost me. So
Are you keeping everyone entertained while
I was wondering whether I'd been kicked off or you guys had kicked off. Like, am I the only one here on the YouTube channel? Like, wait.
I was waiting for it to let me back in, and it was saying connecting, and I was looking at the YouTube stream. I could see there's Eric. He's looking quite happy by himself.
What's going on? Yeah, welcome to the
I have no
show.
idea what happened there. So we're completely dependent on the online software we're using for this, which I have to say 99% of the time works fantastic, but it seems today it may be struggling a bit. Hello, Tony.
I'm a big fan, same as Tony, we're both big fans of Formula One, and I watch a podcast called WTF1, and they do live podcasts and stuff. And they were saying the other day the software they were using hasn't. I think when they do live Twitch streaming for a lot of stuff now. But the software they're using, despite being registered, has an annoying habit of after half an hour it times out and cuts them off. So they have to keep rebooting it every half hour. So I don't know if they've actually managed to solve that one.
Well, thankfully we don't have that much problem. This has been the most problematic podcast in terms of connectivity issues. Both me and Tony were kicked out that time.
Yeah.
So you should have seen Aaron on the live YouTube stream. It was fantastic.
Wait!
What do I do?
Well, I wasn't certain if I'd been kicked out or you guys had been kicked out. So it's like, I might, just in case I'm the only one left on the channel, I was trying to avoid swearing too much. But
Well, we probably ought to call it an end there. And I'm going to have to stitch two podcasts together by the looks of it, because it's re-recording from zero. So it looks like we'll have some stitching to do at the end of this. But regardless, it's been fantastic talking to you both, gentlemen.
And you guys.
And that's been it for this Game and Gadget podcast.